Wicket stands at the cricket for England, and now it's time to take you to Barcelona. The grid walk about to possibly even taking place right now at the Spanish Grand Prix. We're a couple of minutes late to hand over, so let's go to our team out there for you. British racing driver Ollie Caldwell, Jenny Gow, Andrew Benson, and our commentator Harry Benjamin.
Thank you very much, Katie. We'll let you off for coming to a bit late to us, no worries. It is a very warm welcome to the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. Round 9 of the Formula 1 World Championship for the Spanish Grand Prix. And we'll be bringing you all 66 laps of racing over the course of the next couple of hours as the sun shines down on the packed out grandstands. The grid absolutely filled as well. It's a technical, tyre-hungry circuit awaiting us. And, well, with these new flexi wings stiffening still yet to show if they've shaken things up, the top 3 in the championship starting the race in that order, and a competitive scrap expected for the podium. This will be one to stick with us for whatever you're up to this afternoon. Alongside me is the former Alpine F1 development driver Ollie Caldwell and BBC F1's Jenny Gow. Ollie, I've tried to give it the big sell there, but what's clear is that McLaren are a step ahead of the game, and they do have the legs on the field.
Yeah, they definitely are, topping every single session this weekend, all the practices, and a blistering performance by Oscar Piastri in qualifying to go 2.5 tenths clear of his teammate Lando Norris in second. Not an optimal lap from him, but still starting on the front row is where you want to be.
But Jenny, we have 2 McLarens on the front row. Max Verstappen just tucked in behind. Long run down to turn 1. Fireworks?
Oh, we've seen them before. Spain is not a stranger to fireworks. Think back to 2016, Catalonia Grand Prix, and it was Rosberg versus Hamilton. Championship going down to the final race, but this was a deciding factor in that battle, and all eyes will be on that race down to turn 1.
Well, it is Oscar Piastri who managed to clinch that pole position, comes into this weekend 3 points clear at the top of the championship ahead of Lando Norris. Let's hear from your pole sitter for this afternoon, speaking with Marietta Evans.
Oscar, you dominated yesterday and everybody has you as the favourite, but how difficult do you think it will be to keep your rivals at bay?
It'll be a challenge. It's a long run to turn 1 here. You know, we can maybe time it now on the truck. It's going to take about 30 seconds to get to turn 1. So it's going to be a challenging first corner for sure. But I think the pace has been good all weekend. I expect us to have strong pace today. So hopefully we can have a good race regardless.
What would it mean for you to get win number 5 of the year in here?
I mean, it'd be very special, of course, as all the other ones have been. But yeah, just trying to execute a good race. That's all I want to do. And if that means I win, then that's great. But yep, just try and do what I can in the moment, and yeah, keep making the right decisions.
Thank you very much.
Oscar Piastri then, who starts on pole position, his 4th pole of the season. Drivers getting up and gearing up, ready for the formation lap. Jenny, this is an absolutely packed out grid. They all are these days, but for Barcelona, it is jam-packed.
And boiling hot as well. 30 degrees is the air temperature, track temperature 50 degrees, so it is hot down there. And enjoying and basking in that Barcelona sunshine is the England football team. They've come out for a bit of a jolly ahead of their football campaign next week with the new manager. So yeah, they'll be hoping for some luck, and they'll be hoping for the lack of the French, because PSG Champions League winners, and they did it yesterday. Pierre Gasly, Isaac Hadjar, 2 French drivers, and they were overjoyed with that. So yeah, they'll be hoping for a bit of luck themselves.
Yeah, French domination in the Champions League. I'm not sure it'll be quite French domination in the Formula 1, but hey, anything
you never
can happen.
know. Don't discount it, Harry. Heard it here first.
You never know. In fact, Gasly and Hadjar are starting right behind each other down in 8th and 9th, and we're seen walking into the paddock this morning proudly wearing their PSG tops. But indeed, it is a packed out grid. Lots of celebrities, pretty much the entire England squad there this afternoon, as the drivers now in the cockpits of their cars getting strapped in. George Russell just having his seatbelts tightened. George Russell going from 4th spot. And Ollie, Jenny talks about these high temperatures we're expecting. That's going to have an impact on the tyres, isn't it, and the degradation throughout this Grand Prix.
Definitely. We're seeing the drivers sat in their cars now with dry ice being blown over them, a lot of air blowers going, a track temp of 50 degrees and an air temp of 30. This is already a high track of degradation. The tarmac itself is very rough and really eats into these tyres, and now they have to comprehend with the thermal degradation that's going to come as well.
Yeah, Jenny, what are we expecting when it comes to pit stops for this one?
Well, last weekend at Monaco was a manufactured two-stop. This one, it is just a two-stop normally, if normal things go to plan. They've obviously got some hard tyres out there. The hard isn't the one that you would ideally use for the race. It's not the ideal one. So softs and mediums. One man has put himself in a good position in the top 10, Charles Leclerc. He's got 2 sets of the medium tyres, so he'll be hoping to put that to his advantage. The only one in the top 10, and let's see what he can do moving forward.
Certainly, we will be watching out for him. Leclerc going from 7th on the grid. Just a word then, Ollie, on Max Verstappen. Sits 25 points behind Oscar Piastri in the championship. In that top 3, though, he has said it might be time to shine in turn 1. What does he mean by that?
Well, McLaren is definitely being the dominant car, I could say, this season and definitely this weekend. Max Verstappen is hanging on there for the Drivers' Championship, sitting in 3rd on the grid and 3rd in the championship. But he knows if he doesn't want to let McLaren run away with this weekend, he has to make a move early. And what better place to do that than turn 1 with such a long run off the line into that corner.
Sets an identical lap time in qualifying to George Russell, who starts behind him, and the reason he does that is because Max Verstappen set it first. Those are the rules. So Russell, who has now started every race in the top 5 bar Monaco last weekend, looking to bounce back after that tough weekend for both Mercedes drivers. Lewis Hamilton going from 6th as well. That's actually his best starting grid position of the season. He seems really positive, Ollie, doesn't he? Feels like he can move forward in that Ferrari.
Yeah, finally he has seemed to gel this weekend with that Ferrari, and also out-qualified his teammate of Charles Leclerc, which is important for him. Good confidence going into the race.
Well, we are less than 5 minutes away from lights out ahead of the Spanish Grand Prix. But first, before we dive into 66 laps, let's get your latest news with Carl Hartley.
The voice of the UK. 5 Live Formula One.
You're listening to live coverage of the Spanish Grand Prix. We are just moments away from 66 laps of racing, in which Oscar Piastri for McLaren starts in pole position. Alongside him is Lando Norris, his teammate, with Max Verstappen going from 3rd on the grid. Russell and Hamilton rounding out that top 5. And Jenny Gow, BBC's F1's Jenny Gow with us as well. There could be a nice mix as well for the best of the rest, the Pierre Gasly's and Isaac Hadjars in the lower end of the top 10.
Absolutely. There's a fair bit of movement, I think, that we can expect to see from this race. Last time out, we were lucky to see any overtakes. This time, I think, even though the stats favour the people on the front row, I think there will be movement out there. And it's worth saying, as you say, that people have moved up one because Lance Stroll isn't here this weekend. He ducked out after qualifying, so no one can take his place on the grid. You have to qualify to be in with a shot. So no qualification for them. So, yeah, they're down to one car and Lance Stroll. If you want to read all about it, by the way, Andrew Benson's been ferreting around BBC Sport website, but he lost his temper yesterday, and we had the announcement that he'd hurt his wrist again, recurrence of something that happened in 2023. But yeah, it seems like he got upset after qualifying, didn't go to the weighbridge, and yes, the rest is kind of history. He's not there today, and what that means for the future in 2 races, 1 race time, 2 weeks, we don't know.
Yeah, and it's his home race in a couple of weeks as well for Lance Stroll. Also, Jenny, worth noting that, well, we're down 1 car. We'll have 18 on the grid, won't we? Because I think we've got 1 from the pit lane.
Yep, so Yuki Tsunoda will start from the pit lane. Hard times for him, isn't it? But the rear wings changes and setup changes. And Franco Colapinto had that awful qualifying yesterday when he looked so good, and he's had some setup changes as well, so he'll start towards the back.
Okay, well, let's see. We'll run you through the whole grid shortly. Alongside me for this one is the former Alpine F1 development driver, Ollie Cordwell. Ollie, who's your pick for the win?
It's got to be one of the McLarens. I think Oscar Piastri is getting a great shot of this. Starting from pole, he's got the perfect line into turn 1. I think that is my pick for the win of this race.
Well, let's see. Let us know yours. Hashtag BBC F1. We are then just a few moments away from lights out ahead of round 9 of the Formula 1 World Championship. The top 3 in the standings are the top 3 on the grid. We'll run you through it in full. But the sun is shining overhead in Barcelona. It's time for the Spanish Grand Prix. Taking his 4th pole of the season, it's the Australian who leads the standings, Oscar Piastri. It's a McLaren front row lockout with Lando Norris starting alongside him. Max Verstappen is 3rd with George Russell and Lewis Hamilton rounding out the top 5. Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes goes from 6th ahead of Charles Leclerc. Then it's Pierre Gasly in 8th for Alpine, Isaac Hadjar in 9th with Fernando Alonso giving the home fans something to smile about. Going inside that top 10, Alex Albon is 11th. Gabriel Bortoleto in the Sauber gets his best qualifying of the year in 12th ahead of Liam Lawson. Ollie Behrman is 14th with Nico Hulkenberg rounding out the top 15. Esteban Ocon's Haas is 16th ahead of Carlos Sainz. Work to do for the other Spaniard in the field. He's ahead of Franco Colapinto. 18 cars on the grid with Yuki Tsunoda going from the pit lane and no Lance Stroll. Cars then already on their formation lap, halfway round this lap. Ollie, what are they doing on the build-up to the grid here?
So it's 1 lap from the grid back round at a slow pace. The main thing here for the drivers to do is increase the surface temperature and the core temperature of these tyres up to their perfect operating window, and the brakes as well. Get the battery fully charged, ready for that first attack into turn 1. And the reason for that is you want to be going down to turn 1 with the tyres as hot as possible, so when you smash the brakes for the first time, you don't lock the brakes, you don't have any lockups, and they're perfect to go for the rest of the race.
Thanks, Ollie. Well, we were speaking about what the strategy could be, expecting 2 pit stops. Now we know what their tyres are. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, so everyone is starting on the soft tyre. They'll come in around lap 13 from that point onwards. What they go into, we don't know yet. The only person doing something different is Yuki Tsunoda starting from the pit lane. He'll start on the medium tyre.
Yeah, Yuki Tsunoda, who qualified last yesterday, was at a loss to explain his speed. He has still got a different specification of car compared to his teammate. He's running the old floor, but that shouldn't account for all of the time missed. They've changed rear wing, setup change for that, suspension and front wing to try and give the Japanese driver, who now, once he starts this Grand Prix, will become the most experienced Japanese Formula 1 driver, taking 96 starts to his name. Starting from the pit lane may well see him avoid any drama at the start. Ollie, key overtaking points around this track, where are they?
Definitely into turn 1 off the back with the longest run into turn 1. Good exit through turn 3 and into turn 4. Second DRS zone on the exit of turn 9 into a heavy braking of turn 10. And of course, out of the final corner into the largest DRS zone on the track.
We'll be bringing you continued updates from the French Open and Roland Garros throughout the course of the next couple of hours, and handing back live coverage at the close of the checkered flag on this one. Updates too from England against West Indies in the cricket and the T20 blast. But right now, we are about to go racing in Barcelona. It's round 9 for the Spanish Grand Prix. It's Lando Norris in 2nd, Oscar Piastri on pole. It's all eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing in Spain. It's a good start from Piastri, poor start from Lando Norris. Verstappen gets alongside. Norris being swept as well by George Russell, who's going to have the inside line. Piastri through turn 1 though, followed by Max Verstappen, who gains a place up into 2nd as Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes has to take to the runoff area. But a strong start from our pole sitter Oscar Piastri, who leads coming into the right-hander of turn 4 from Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, losing a place down to 3rd. And Norris is actually under pressure here from Lewis Hamilton in the downhill left-hander of turn 5. What a move though from Hamilton's teammate Charles Leclerc, fighting with the other Mercedes of George Russell. Nice clean start though from the 19 drivers in the field.
Yeah, both Ferraris looking very racing on this opening lap, both gaining positions and both passing George Russell, who seems to have not got his tyres fired up.
No, had a little look down the inside into turn one. We were 3 wide at one point. Thought better of it, but Max Verstappen made the most of getting that good start. Fernando Alonso in the sole remaining green Aston Martin into the left-hander of turn 10. Almost loses the car while fighting with Isaac Hadjar. Alonso in 10th, Hadjar in 9th. The final points paying positions, but as we come to a close at the end of lap 1, as we begin lap 2 of 66, it's Oscar Piastri who leads. Verstappen, Norris, Hamilton, Leclerc up to 5th, Russell and Antonelli 6th and 7th, with Gasly, Hadjar and Alonso the top 10. Then comes Hulkenberg, who's just managed to do a lovely move to nick off 10 place away from Fernando Alonso. Hulkenberg in the Sauber, welcome to the points, but Alonso's not going to get this one up. Round the outside of the long right-hander of turn 3, Alonso keeps his foot planted on home ground. Alonso's not going to accept that, but he has to. Into the right-hander of turn 4. Hulkenberg goes a little deep, but holds the position. Hulkenberg, a former reserve driver at Aston Martin, now back in a race seat fighting with the wily old fox. And right now, Alonso cannot find a way through on the Sauber.
Yeah, you got two very experienced drivers battling and showing their experience here. The Swifty Spaniard was not going to let that go through turn 3, holding it flat round the outside. But Nico Hulkenberg had him right back into turn 4.
Meanwhile, lap 2 of 66 continues into the left-hander of turn number 10. It's Piastri who leads, but not by much. Verstappen just about 0.6 of a second away from our leader. DRS will be activated. That's the drag reduction system, which is allocated in 2 zones around this 14-cornered circuit on the start-finish straight, and then through turns 9 and 10. The letterbox of the rear wing opens when you're within a second of the car in front of you. Verstappen gets it, has a little look to the inside of Oscar Piastri. Piastri not flustered by that, holds on to the lead, but Verstappen closing in. He's not letting this McLaren escape him. Verstappen second, Norris a couple of seconds back in third. Then comes Hamilton and Leclerc, the top 5. Russell, Antonelli, Gasly, Hadjar, Hulkenberg holding on to that 10th place ahead of Alonso. Bortoletto's 12th, Lawson, Albon, Behrman, Ocon the top 16, with Carlos Sainz in 17th, Franco Colapinto 18th, and Yuki Tsunoda from the pit lane running that alternate strategy on the medium tyre. Everybody else on the soft, he's 19th and last.
We saw a couple of cars go wide at that turn 1 and 2, going through the FIA mandatory escape road. One of those was Nico Hulkenberg, as we hear from Russell.
They're moving and braking today. What's going on?
George, concentrate.
That was George Russell there, who was saying that really to flag it to the FIA. Moving under braking, not happy about that. He's behind Charles Leclerc. The 2 Ferraris getting the jump on George Russell's Mercedes. Hamilton started in 5th. Charles Leclerc started in 7th, while Russell was up in 4th. Now finds himself down 2 positions into 6th as we begin lap 4 of 66 around this circuit, the Barcelona Catalunya. Let's check in with Jenny Gao.
Always interesting to hear Toto Wolff, team principal, on the radio. He doesn't speak out very often, but when he does, it's an order to be obeyed, and that's what George Russell was hearing.
Move almost on for Isaac Hadjar versus Pierre Gasly. The 2 French drivers battling it out over 8th place at the moment, coming into the right-hander of turn 1. Hadjar with the DRS tried to have a little look. Gasly driving defensively, and they're bringing Nico Hulkenberg along for the ride as well. Hulkenberg, who was really disappointed with his qualifying yesterday, out-qualified for the 5th time by his rookie teammate Gabriel Bortoletto, who himself got a career best qualifying in 12th. Bortoletto, the Brazilian, the reigning F2 champion, still holding on in 12th, and it's not too far away from this nice battle between 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th. And actually, we'll throw Liam Lawson into that one as well, because he's only a couple of tenths behind the Brazilian. So those final points paying positions, very much up for grabs in these early stages. Back out in front, that gap that looked super close has now opened. Piastri has put his foot down, and Max Verstappen cannot keep up. 2 seconds the gap between the Australian who leads this race and the Dutchman in 2nd, Norris 3rd, Hamilton, Leclerc 5th, Russell, Antonelli is the top 7. Then it's Gasly, Hadjar, Hulkenberg the top 10. They are your point scorers for the time being. Alonso is 11th ahead of Gabriel Bortoletto, Liam Lawson, Alex Albon and Oliver Behrman the top 15, with Esteban Ocon, Sainz, Colapinto and Tsunoda, the 19 drivers starting this race. No Lance Stroll, he's been withdrawn after qualifying for a wrist injury. As we get another look at the start, Oliver Caldwell.
Yeah, Oscar Piastri got a very good start off the line there. Lando Norris not quite being swamped by Max Verstappen on his left and George Russell on the right, looking back down the field. Yeah, you got the Alpine on the outside of Isaac Hadjar, but he just manages to hold it round turn 1 as Kimi Antonelli goes down the escape road.
Yeah, I tell you what, Leclerc had an absolute blinder of a start, and both Ferraris side by side, nothing between them, and George Russell was the car to the right of them, was really squeezed up against the pit wall. That could have been a nightmare for those three, but they all managed to find their own piece of the tarmac. This is the sound on board Oscar Piastri, and the view he did not want. His teammate launching down towards turn 1, and a Red Bull moving its way round the outside of the right-hander, which then becomes the inside of turn 2, tries to close up in the next right-hander of 3, but cannot do it, as we're going to get another look at Lewis Hamilton's rocket launch. He finds himself in the middle, or in the far left actually, with his teammate Charles Leclerc in the middle, and then there's George Russell and the Mercedes going almost 3 wide into turn 1. Hamilton manages to hold it round the outside, that becomes the inside, and that became 4th place for the 7-time champ.
Lewis Hamilton there didn't get quite the same amount of drive off the line as his teammate Charles Leclerc, as we see an onboard of Liam Lawson at turn 1 making contact with the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso, I believe. But Lewis did get a great drive in second gear as Charles Leclerc fell behind, and George Russell got caught at the apex of turn 1.
Certainly did, and that actually had an impact on Nico Hülkenberg and possibly another car too, which had to take avoiding action into the runoff area. It might well have been Alex Albon. It was Alex Albon in the Williams. There was contact there. They are living to fight another day, but we're just getting shots of the Williams front wing, which is falling slightly to one side, so there is damage on board for the Williams of Alex Albon. We were talking about the Ferraris. They're currently running 4th and 5th. Leclerc closing in on Hamilton, and Jenny's got news.
Yeah, spent the last 2 laps all over the back of him. I wonder if he wants through. He's on a different strategy call from Lewis Hamilton. He'll want to come in and pit for mediums. They both will, but the medium will want to go longer for Leclerc. So does he want through, and will Hamilton give it to him? Is this high up in the order to be messing about with orders?
Well, they've had team orders already so far this season, and they have, on the whole, complied with them. DRS helped Charles Leclerc close up under braking, but Hamilton isn't opening the door for him. First pit stop happening as well. That is for Alex Albon, who has come in with a broken front wing. He sinks to the back of the field. Williams might be hoping now for some kind of safety car intervention that can bring them closer into the fight. He was on the soft tyre. Really, you want to make that work till around about lap 10 to 13. So it's an early stop because of that front wing change, and a longer stop too for the Thai driver who gets going and back into this race, but is now down in 19th and last. It's lap 7 of 66 for the Spanish Grand Prix. It's Oscar Piastri who leads the way from Max Verstappen. The gap, 3 seconds.
We can push on these tyres now. They're up to 10. We want to try and pass Verstappen.
That's the voice of Will Joseph talking to Lando Norris. Now the tyres are up to temperature. They want to pass Lando Norris. Verstappen is giving McLaren a headache by splitting the two of them. Norris with a poor start in this race. Lost the position to Verstappen, is down to 3rd. The 2 Ferraris still sharing the same bit of asphalt on this circuit. 4th and 5th. Russell is 6th ahead of Antonelli. Pierre Gasly is 8th ahead of Isaac Hadjar, who's got Nico Hülkenberg for company inside that top 10. Ollie, you actually noticed Nico Hülkenberg, and we saw it as well. He had to take to the runoff area and the escape road in turn 1 of lap 1, which I believe he was noted for, but that's not going to lead to any further investigation. So he is in that 10th place and will hold on to it. Then comes Alonso in 11th. Bortoletto is 12th. Lawson, Behrman, Ocon the top 15, with Sainz, Colapinto, Tsunoda, and Alex Albon pit stopping early to get a new front wing, is now 19th and last.
The Red Bull of Max Verstappen there seemed to be able to just get his tyres fired up a little bit more than both the McLarens. He did exactly what he said he was going to do, which was be very fighty on those first few laps, especially into turn 1, passing Lando Norris around the outside, and then 1 lap later trying to pass Oscar Piastri, but not being able to. Oscar then responded and has pulled out a 3.1 second lead, dropping him in the dust and being caught by Lando Norris now.
Yeah, 1.2 seconds between them. Last lap around for Max Verstappen was a 1:21.0. For Lando Norris, it was a 1:29. So Norris a little quicker that time around. Meanwhile, continuing the watch on Ferrari. The reason this is quite intriguing is Charles Leclerc out-qualified by Lewis Hamilton yesterday, but was saving himself an extra set of the medium tyre. Now he is making the move into turn one, but Hamilton closes the door. So team radio or team orders not yet in play for the two Ferrari drivers. They are racing out there. They are both on the soft tyre. Charles Leclerc electing to come in early, scrap his qualifying early, as we get Yuki Tsunoda coming into the pits in the Red Bull. Disaster for him yesterday, qualified last. Also Oliver Behrman coming in too. This is lap 9 of 66 that they are coming in and changing their tyres. Yuki Tsunoda going on to another from the medium to the soft. So Tsunoda then clearly wasn't liking how the medium tyres were treating him that he started this race on, and has gone on to the soft in a car that has been tweaked since qualifying, which is why he started from the pit lane. And Oliver Behrman has come in and put on the medium tyre. So this is happening a little earlier than we really were expecting from the Pirelli strategy guide that we are briefed with ahead of the race. So let's see how that unfolds. Temperatures at the moment, air temperature 28.9, track temperature 49.1 degrees, as the Ferrari drivers, I think, have been told to swap positions. And they haven't yet done so, because Hamilton is fourth, Charles Leclerc still fifth, but Leclerc now closing down that start-finish straight with the aid of DRS, moves to the inside. Hamilton leaves the door open for him this time, and there Ollie Caldwell is the move done. Ferrari playing the team game.
We saw Lewis Hamilton out-qualify his teammate Charles Leclerc yesterday, but this weekend he hasn't really gelled with the car, and we're seeing that now, because the gap now that Charles Leclerc has passed is still 6 seconds to Norris. They were falling back behind Lewis Hamilton. And yeah, Prix had to pull that plug and make Charles Leclerc be allowed to go past and see if he can catch up to the McLaren of Lando Norris.
Slow stop for Carlos Sainz. There's a new front wing going on for the Williams driver in the other car as well. Alex Albon had to have a front wing change. That's a slow stop for Carlos Sainz too, who's just come into the pit. Nico Hülkenberg pitted as well just a moment ago from inside that top 10. And he is in a real fight for points then this afternoon, if he can get them. Only 1 point scoring race so far for the German driver at the Sauber team. He feeds out down in 15th position on that medium tyre, so stopping any kind of effect, at least from the undercut of the likes of Ollie Behrman, who were further back. The field was still fairly close together, but back out in front, well, while Verstappen has fallen away from Oscar Piastri, the Dutchman has fallen into the clutches of the second McLaren of Lando Norris, who is closing in through the right-hander of turn 3. So just getting another look further back in the field of Yuki Tsunoda, overtaking the Williams driver of Alex Albon further back. Right, we are currently on lap 11 of 66, but we've got an update in the cricket. England against the West Indies. Nikesh Ragani is watching.
Another wicket has fallen here for the West Indies, who are batting first in this second ODI. It's Jacob Bethel who's removed Justin Graves for 22, caught down at long off by Ben Duckett. Shea Hope is still there on 60 from 58, and the West Indies currently 258 for 5 in the 44th over.
Thanks very much, Nikesh. Still battling out on track, and while we see what happens to Lando Norris, let's head over to Roland Garros and check in with Russell Fuller.
Where Iga Swiatek, the champion of the last 3 years, who lost the first set by 6 games to 1 to Elena Rybakina and found herself 2-love down in the second, is fighting back. She won 5 games in a row and is now serving to take us into a decider, leading by 5 games to 3.
French Open Roland Garros continues. Commentary of that on Sports Extra 2. It's coming into the right-hander of turn 1 here in Barcelona for the Spanish Grand Prix, while Oscar Piastri is extending his lead to almost 4 seconds. The battle for second place is on. Having nicked him at the start, Max Verstappen is now falling into the clutches of Lando Norris, who is now within half a second of the Dutchman ahead through the right-hander of turn 4. And Max Verstappen, Ollie, has been saying that he's struggling for grip out there, and you can almost see it coming through the corners, struggling to put the throttle down.
Max Verstappen complaining of no grip, comparing himself to the McLarens of Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. He's really struggling.
Oh,
Oscar tyre update, please. How's the tyre? It's really a little bit with the rear now.
Well, Oscar Piastri, they're saying that he's struggling with his rear tyres, but he's just pulled out another 0.6 of Max Verstappen, who seems to be struggling quite a bit more. The Red Bull able to fire up the tyres quicker earlier in the race, but we've known that the McLaren has better tyre degradation than the other teams, and I think we're seeing this in play here.
We certainly are. Just further back, Pierre Gasly pitted a moment ago to try and avoid the undercut from Nico Hülkenberg. These tyres not lasting as long as we thought they would. Onto the start-finish straight we go, down towards turn 1, over 500 metres from the pole mark to the braking zone with DRS. Norris to the inside, and before they even reach the braking zone, it's Norris ahead, Verstappen down to third, McLaren 1-2 on lap 13 of 66, having lost the position at the start of this race. 12 laps later, Lando Norris recovers it and gets himself back up into second.
A very uncharacteristic Max Verstappen there, down the main straight into turn 1. Lando Norris obviously had the DRS behind him, where Max Verstappen didn't, but absolutely zero move to defend from Max Verstappen, just letting Norris past and already 8/10 behind.
Lap 13 of 66 is Piastri who leads, Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc, Hamilton the top 5, Russell, Antonelli, Hadjar, Alonso, Lawson the top 10, Bortoletto is 11th ahead of Ocon, Colapinto is 13th, Gasly first in the pit stop is down in 14th, crucially out ahead of Nico Hülkenberg. Behrman is also pitted in 16th, so too for Tsunoda, Albon and Sainz, the two Williams drivers occupying 18th and 19th, Jenny Gao.
Rival strategists at McLaren and Red Bull are being pictured on screen because it comes down to when to bring your driver in. Which do you bring in first? McLaren's following each other now, so that gives them a bit of an extra opportunity. But the undercut here is so crucial, so important. You can really help your driver by bringing them in a lap earlier and letting them race and make up that place in the pit lane.
And we have a pit stop from Max Verstappen, who makes the plunge after having just been overtaken for second place. Verstappen is in and out again and will feed out just behind Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bulls. It's a bit of clean air for the Dutchman, who makes his way into the right-hander of turn 1, lap 14, and he has put on the soft tyre, the Red Bull tyre. We are expecting 2 pit stops in this race. Meanwhile, going side by side is the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso and the Haas of Esteban Ocon. A moment ago, Fernando Alonso locked up into the left-hander of turn 5 and actually went into the gravel and lost a huge amount of time. Not the way he would have wanted to go, not the way he would have wanted his Spanish Grand Prix to be going right now.
This track temperature and these tyre conditions are really playing havoc with the drivers. Just got an overtake done by Liam Lawson, now up into 9th and in the points. He overtook Gabriel Bortoletto into turn 1, but really it was an easy overtake up until the braking, and then they tiptoed around side by side using a lot of curb, but just not able to carry the speed that they can earlier in the weekend and in qualifying.
This is the sound of Max Verstappen, who will be trying some form of undercut, but the gap at the moment, if Norris pitted now in second, well, Verstappen would come out ahead. However, now that Lando Norris has been given a bit of free air, we also know that the McLarens are incredibly strong at keeping their tyres in shape. They suffer less degradation than the rest of the field. It's something Red Bull have been constantly trying to chase over the course of 8 races that we've had so far this year, and haven't quite managed to successfully do so.
Something to note on the timing screen is both McLarens, while they haven't stopped yet, are the only 2 cars running in the 1-minute 20s. The closest after that being Charles Leclerc, 1:21.3, some 0.6 off Lando Norris.
Well, lap 15 of 66 is Piastri, Norris and Leclerc currently the top 3 after Verstappen having pitted. He's now come out in 8th. Let's get back to the cricket. There's been another wicket, Nikesh Ragani.
Yep, and it's Matthew Ford who has fallen for just 1 for the West Indies. Their 6th man out, Saqib Mahmood taking the wicket. So the wheels slightly coming off at the back end of this West Indies innings after a very good start, which looked like they may get way beyond 320. Just starting to falter a touch. 268 for 6 in the 45th over.
Thanks, Nikesh. Ball by ball commentary of that over on Sports Extra. And it's all square in the tennis. Russell Fuller.
Yes, Iga Swiatek still very much alive in this French Open as she tries to win the title for a 4th year in a row. She's levelled a match with Elena Rybakina by taking the second set 6-3.
Thanks, Russell. Coverage of that French Open from Roland Garros back here in Barcelona for the Spanish Grand Prix, round 9 of the Formula 1 World Championship. It's Oscar Piastri who leads, Lando Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton, Russell the top 5. Antonelli is 6th ahead of Max Verstappen, who is pitted from 3rd place, ahead of Isaac Hadjar, Liam Lawson and Gabriel Bortoleto now the top 10, with Ocon in 11th. Gasly is 12th, having pitted ahead of Hulkenberg, Behrman, Tsunoda the top 15. Then comes Albon. Alonso's just pitted and will come out some way down the order behind the Alpine of Franco Colapinto, and indeed will plunge all the way down to last position in this race.
Max Verstappen now out on a newer set of softs and has just set a new fastest lap, a 1 minute 19.6, down in 7th position, taking it away from Oscar Piastri, who set that earlier in the race. Fernando Alonso coming into the pits unhappy with the softs he was on after a trip to the gravel, is going out on a new set of mediums.
Lewis Hamilton coming into the pits from 4th position. Let's take you there, Jenny Gow.
A long way to go. Protecting undercut.
So protecting the undercut, he gets a brand new set of the medium tyres. That was Lewis Hamilton, 2.2 second pit stop.
Hamilton then wasn't quite on terms with why he was being called in early, being told to protect from the undercut. Let's see where this puts him out. He should come ahead of Gabriel Bortoleto. Sauber, bit of clear air for Hamilton in 9th place as he now feeds through into the right-hander of turn 3. Here's his teammate.
And full push, please. That's what I'm doing already.
Charles Leclerc told to push fully. Reply, I'm already pushing fully, thank you very much. As Charles Leclerc are expecting him in pretty quickly before that pit stop happens. Another wicket. Let's take you back to the cricket with Nikesh Ragani.
Yep, Saqib Mahmood has got 2 in 2 here. Roston Chase gone for a first ball duck, edging one behind to Joss Butler, so he's on a hat-trick ball here at the moment. Shai Hope is still out there for the West Indies though on 66, and the Windies now 268 for 7 in the 45th over.
Coverage continues on Sports Extra, expecting Charles Leclerc into the pits. Indeed, he is now into the pit lane for the Monegasque in that Ferrari car, slides into his box, hits his marks, puts on the medium tyre. Verstappen gets himself back up into 4th, as being just ahead of Kimi Antonelli, who was following him in the Mercedes. Antonelli yet to pit. Leclerc, where's he going to feed out then? Charles Leclerc comes out behind Isaac Hadjar and just ahead of Liam Lawson. So having orchestrated a team swap earlier on in this race between the 2 Ferraris, Hamilton ahead of Leclerc. They swapped on track. Leclerc continues to stay ahead now with a Liam Lawson in between, but that Racing Bulls has yet to pit. So it's Piastri, Norris, the top 2, who have yet to come in to the pits. We're just getting another look at Max Verstappen, who just overtook Kimi Antonelli. A lovely, nice sweeping move round the outside of the right-hander of turn 12, up and over the hill, and then 2 right-handers see off a lap, and that was enough for Verstappen, with fresher tyres to get through on the young Italian rookie. It's Piastri, Norris, Russell now up to 3rd, having yet to pit. Max Verstappen is 4th, Antonelli 5th.
Why did you pull me in so early? We are protecting for a possible undercut from behind.
So Hamilton continues to question why he's been pulled in, and it's because they don't want to be undercut from any cars behind. Ollie, I'm wondering if you can just explain what an undercut is. If you can.
My mind's
basically. Well, no, so when you're undercutting a race or overcutting, aren't you? If you want to undercut a car, you pit earlier, right, to try and get on that rubber a little bit fresher, and that's why then you get that fresher air, fresher rubber as you get out on that tyre. But the car ahead of you will have that track position, but the longer they run, well, they'll be on the older tyres. So it's interesting then who they might be protecting the undercut from. They're watching out for those pit stoppers earlier on behind them. Liam Lawson actually has just come into the pits and makes his way back out from further down the field. There's Max Verstappen. Lovely move down the inside, coming through the left-hander of turn number 7. There is a tyre disparity, but he's managed to get himself back up into 3rd, ahead of of George Russell in 4th, Antonelli 5th, Hadjar is in 6th, yet to pit. Leclerc, Hamilton, Bortoleto, Gasly, the top 10. Jenny Gow.
You'd have to think protecting the undercut is from Mercedes and the duo of George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. I'll keep an eye out, let you know.
And of course, Lewis Hamilton questioning that because now he has to do a longer stint than his teammate on this set of tyres. You caught me at a bad time there. I was just looking at what people were doing on the pit stops when you asked that question, because now we're seeing people pit. We're seeing some teams doing different things to others. Some teams opting to stop from a soft and continue on another new set of soft tyres, where other drivers such as Fernando Alonso, Franco Colapinto, Nico Hülkenberg stopped from the soft, and they've now gone onto a new set of mediums.
They certainly have. That is the voice of the former Alpine F1 development driver Oliver Caldwell, alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, and our BBC F1 reporter Jenny Gow, just watching all 66 laps of this Spanish Grand Prix as pit stops have been occurring. Bortoleto's just come in, falling down the field. Hadjar has come in from the points as well, goes side by side with Esteban, with Ollie Behrman actually, who has managed to get the jump on Isaac Hadjar. Behrman, who pitted very early in this race. Behrman, who started down in 14th. They're going side by side though into the right-hander of turn 4, even though Behrman got ahead initially. Much fresher rubber for Hadjar. He's through.
How far do you think we can get? About 25 possible? Possible, but difficult.
Well, if it's difficult for Oscar Piastri, he doesn't really sound like it. Also 5.4 seconds ahead of his teammate Lando Norris, and then a further 14.6 back to 3rd place Max Verstappen.
That 21 of 66. Piastri and Norris still lead this race. They have yet to pit. Verstappen 3rd has pitted. George Russell comes into the pits now. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, so he swings into his pit stop. 22 engineers lift him up, the mechanics, and they put him out on the medium tyres. 2.2 second stop.
Thanks, Jenny. As Russell feeds out, the Ferrari of Leclerc goes through, so too does Hamilton, and that will feed Russell into 7th. So the two McLarens then still out there. Oscar Piastri saying, well, can he go a little bit longer? It's 5.6 seconds between them, between Piastri and Norris, and a further 13.9 seconds back to Max Verstappen. Roughly under green flag, you will lose about 22 to 23 seconds in the pit lane. So if Piastri were to pit, then he would fall behind. However, McLaren are getting ready in the pits. I think it will be for the second McLaren of Lando Norris, who comes into the pit lane now, hits the markers of the pit lane entry, slows down, and heading straight for the box. Jenny.
Yes, the first box. He enters into it. Car number 4 lifted up. The medium tyres. There's a slow stop. Stowe at the back, I think. 3 seconds.
Well, that is a day and an age in this world of Formula One. So that has allowed Max Verstappen to go through and undercut and reclaim that second place. However, Lando Norris will be on much fresher tyres. And crucially, that McLaren can also manage the tyres much better than the Red Bull. Doesn't lose as much degradation. Kimi Antonelli comes into the pits now. Norris feeds out in 3rd place. So ahead of Leclerc. Hamilton goes through in the top 5. Kimi Antonelli's just had a pit stop, so he will feed out. His teammate goes through, and that should just be enough for him. Or has Pierre Gasly managed to get the jump on Kimi Antonelli? It's worked for Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, pitting early as he has undercut one of the Mercedes and put himself up into 7th. Pierre Gasly, who has only had 1 Grand Prix point score so far this year, looking to try and get a second one on the board. Right, 17.1 seconds separate Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen, who has already pitted. Oscar Piastri drew a pit stop, and he is in. It's 22 to 23 seconds for a pit stop, Jenny.
So he swings into his pit stop bay. They lift him up, put him on the medium tyre. The point of difference is a fast pit stop for Piastri, 2.2 seconds. Where does he feed out, though?
Well, Verstappen will go through. Already down the start-finish straight, the Dutchman sails on by and takes the lead of the Spanish Grand Prix. However, Max Verstappen on older tyres compared to Oscar Piastri, who will feed out in second, about 5 seconds back from Max Verstappen.
It's worth noting Verstappen is on the soft tyres, Piastri and Norris both on the medium tyres, so there's a massive difference in what they're doing out there strategically.
Yeah, medium tyre can go much longer in this race. Switching to that medium tyre from the softs, if you can aim for, well, maybe lap 42 to 48, then you could be doing well. One more, then all the way to the end. It's lap 23 of 66. Verstappen leads by 5.5 seconds to Piastri. Then it's Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton the top 5, Russell in 6th, having all now pitted. So Ferrari working against the undercut from Russell, beat them to it and still come out ahead of the Mercedes man. Pierre Gasly's worked for him though. He is up into 7th spot, but Antonelli on the medium tyre compared to Gasly's soft. So Gasly at the moment with the quicker rubber, but it will degrade faster. Antonelli 8th, Hülkenberg's up in 9th. Hadjar, one of the bigger losers, still inside that top 10, is now chasing Nico Hülkenberg's 9th place. Behrman up to 11th ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. Albon is 13th. Lawson and Fernando Alonso, having started inside the top 10, has dropped down to 15th ahead of Carlos Sainz. It's the two Spanish drivers not giving much for the home crowd to shout about right now. Colapinto is 17th, Bortoletto's down to 18th, with Esteban Ocon 19th, I should say. I'm used to 20. We only got 19 drivers in this race because Lance Stroll withdrawn after qualifying with a wrist injury. We hope to see him back in a couple of weeks' time, but we shall see. So just 19 drivers, all still in this race and battling hard. But of course now everyone has completed their first pit stops.
Red Bull and Max Verstappen knowing they can't necessarily win this race on outright pace, so they are having to mix up the strategy compared to the two McLarens. As you hear on board, the Mercedes of Kimi Antonelli passing the Alpine of Pierre Gasly into turn 1, and then behind him the RB of Isaac Hadjar doing the exact same move with DRS to pass Nico Hülkenberg into turn 1.
Certainly has. Lap 24 of 66. You're listening to the Spanish Grand Prix, round 9 of the Formula 1 World Championship. It is Max Verstappen who leads this race, but doesn't quite have, as you say, Ollie, the outright race pace to win this one. So he's trying something different on the strategy. Pitted earlier from 3rd place, having got himself up to 2nd at the start, picked off Lando Norris, but then fell behind after his first pit stop, trying to get the undercut. That has worked, and he is now leading this race. However, he is on a different tyre, the soft tyre, quicker rubber, but will degrade much faster, so he will have to come into the pits earlier. Meanwhile, Oscar Piastri, who led this race in its first stages, has come out in 2nd after his pit stop. We're expecting a bit of radio there. It was Alex Albon who's having a bit of a tete-a-tete with Liam Lawson further down the field in 13th and 14th, and Fernando Alonso as well in this one. Alonso just trying to find his way back through to the points. After the top 3, Norris also pitting, having regained 2nd place from Max Verstappen on track, then came in for his pit stop, fell back down to 3rd, which is where he currently is. Charles Leclerc is 4th after a rocket start in this race, and team orders doing their job to swap with Hamilton on track. Hamilton also pitting and comes out inside the top 5. Ferrari working against the Mercedes duo of Antonelli and Russell, who sit behind. Russell 6th and Antonelli in 7th. Gasly, Hadjar and Hülkenberg the top 10, as we're just seeing some wonderful racing being displayed by those outside of the top 10 between Liam Lawson, who is 12th. Fernando Alonso has managed to just pick off Alex Albon and up to 13th, and Albon just has to look at the back of them now, both, Ollie.
Yeah, potentially a bit of contact there between the RB of Liam Lawson and the Williams of Alex Albon, as Albon comes on the radio and says front wing damage. We saw the carbon flying off there between the two of them into turn 1 as we get a replay.
Liam Lawson heading down towards turn 1. Alex Albon has just said he's got front wing damage for the 2nd time in this race. We'll see if that comes to anything, including another pit stop. But Albon then took to the escape road and rejoined ahead of Liam Lawson. And then Lawson tried it again on the next lap around in the inside, and that might have been... Oh no, that was still the same lap. So they're still battling further down the field. Turn 1, that incident now under investigation. Right, update in the cricket. Let's head to Nikesh Ragani,
where there has been another wicket here for the West Indies. They're 8 down now, and it was another one to Adil Rashid, who's taken 3 for 53 so far. He's got 3 balls left in his spell. Gudakesh Murthy caught on the boundary for 18. The West Indies now 294 for 8 in the 47th over.
That's on Sports Extra right now on 5 Live. This is the Formula One. We'll also be bringing you updates of the French Open at Roland Garros. Let's head to Russell Fuller.
Deciding set of the fourth round as Iga Świątek tries to win a 25th consecutive French Open match. She won the second set, but very tight now in the decider, with Elena Rybakina of Kazakhstan leading on serve by 2-1.
Thanks, Russell. Back here in the Formula One. It took a while to get that replay between Liam Lawson and Alex Albon, but we finally got it, and there definitely was contact. Big damage for Alex Albon, who will have to come in for a front wing change. Jenny Gow.
It's unusual to see both drivers of a team having their front wing changed. So Albon and Sainz have damage, and now Albon again. They'll be running out of their front wings down there.
Well, it's a certain possibility. It really is not the way Williams would have liked this race to go. They have such a dire track record here, which continues as Alex Albon has been told to retire. It will be his first retirement of the season for Alex Albon, and for a Williams team, well, they haven't scored points here since 2016. 13 years ago, they took their last Formula One victory. And now, well, just one car left in it, and that will be Carlos Sainz, who's all the way down in 14th spot at the moment, not doing much for the fans supporting the Spaniard in this one. Alonso was involved in that fight as well, but managed to get through cleanly. He's still up in 13th, just ahead of his compatriot. Some nice side-by-side racing, I should say, between Isaac Hadjar fighting it out in the top 10, and has made his way up into 8th spot now, ahead of Pierre Gasly. Hulkenberg rounds out the top 10. At the front of the field, Max Verstappen, having pitted early, going onto the soft tyre, is leading this race, but that gap is coming down. Oscar Piastri, 3.9 seconds back on the medium tyre, will be able to go longer into this race. The McLaren's better at managing their tyres as well. Max Verstappen and Red Bull trying something here to get themselves in the hunt for the win, because they know they cannot do it on outright pace. Lando Norris is third, the two Ferraris of Leclerc and Hamilton, the top 5. Then it's Russell, Antonelli, the top 7. Hadjar, Gasly and Hulkenberg rounds out the point scorers in 10th. Behrman is 11th ahead of Lawson, Alonso, Sainz and Bortoleto the top 15. Ocon, Colapinto and Tsunoda 18th, with Alex Albon now retiring from this race. I don't think he might be getting back into the car, and he's getting back out on track. So he did come into the pits and is now back into this race.
It's so hard to drive, like, come brake and then have no turning. It looks it.
So Max Verstappen there saying that his car is very difficult to drive. He has no brake and he has no turning. Now, from a driver's perspective, what that means is basically when he's on the brake and trying to turn in the car, the rear of the car is moving a huge amount, which we know this Red Bull has a problem with, the rear tyres and the degradation there. He just can't seem to commit to a turn-in without the car getting a big snap of oversteer.
Still, that lead now being eroded by Oscar Piastri, staying cool, calm and collected, as we know his character has become, coming down to 3 seconds now between Verstappen and Piastri. Verstappen, Piastri and Norris are the top 3. Leclerc and Hamilton the top 5. Jenny.
Albon, he served his stop-go penalty. He was given a 10-second stop-go penalty. If he didn't serve it, he'd have to carry it over to Canada. So what they've done is they've served the penalty, gone out, done another lap, but brought him back in to retire the car. So that's the explanation of what was actually happening.
Which is where he is now. He hits his marks and slowly gets wheeled back into the pit lane. Alex Albon then out of this race after contact with Liam Lawson. It was Albon on the inside, squeezing Lawson, who was taking the racing line. Lawson's rear right tyre cutting into the front wing of Alex Albon. And that incident under investigation, and has just come through with no further action involved in that one. Meanwhile, we have got a Red Bull in the pit lane. It's Max Verstappen, Jenny.
Yes, he's going to dive into that Red Bull pit box. They're going to lift him up, getting rid of those old, used, soft tyres, dropping him down onto the medium. So now it's on the same tyre as almost everyone else. A 2.3 second pit stop.
So Max Verstappen then will feed out ahead of the Ferrari. Charles Leclerc coming down the start-finish straight now. It's going to be tight. Max Verstappen onto the throttle now. Leclerc carrying more speed. Verstappen trying to get up to speed. It's actually Lewis Hamilton, my apologies. Leclerc's gone through. Hamilton tried to make it through, but no. Max Verstappen feeds out in 4th position. Piastri goes through to regain the lead. Lando Norris is 2nd. Charles Leclerc up to 3rd. Verstappen feeds out just ahead of Hamilton's Ferrari, with Russell 6th, Antonelli 7th, Hadjar 8th, Hülkenberg 9th, and Pierre Gasly the top 10.
Has pitted. That means he's on a 3. We're happy with our plan.
So Lando Norris being told Max Verstappen has pitted. That means he's on a 3. One would intimate that would be a 3-stop strategy, which is interesting because we all thought this was going to be a 2-stop strategy. It's an early time to come in, unless that he can work miracles, Jenny Gow.
It's so hot out there. I just wonder if that track temperature, which is at 47.9 degrees, is having some sort of effect down there, and they're trying to do something else. But he's only got 1 medium, 1 new soft, and 1 hard. And the hard is such a slow tyre, so maybe he'll have to go on to another soft, but it will be a used soft.
Well, let's see how this unfolds. It's intriguing so far, this Spanish Grand Prix. Lap 31 of 66. Talk about those temperatures. Air temperature 29 degrees. Track temperature 47.9 degrees. And the closest battles out on track at the moment. Well, let's just hear from Hamilton first.
Just no good, mate. There is nowhere today. Understood.
Hamilton, well, struggling out there, Ollie.
Yeah, not happy with that Ferrari still, especially on the rear. Axel, as he said, he just doesn't have the same pace as his teammate Charles Leclerc. Going back to Max Verstappen, whatever the Red Bull team is planning, I can imagine that they didn't want to fall behind that Ferrari of Charles Leclerc because it's pushed them out of where they want to go. As we see an onboard of Liam Lawson battling with
Ollie Behrman.
Haas of Ollie Behrman. Ollie Behrman having to take to the escape road at turn 1.
Yeah, those two battling it out outside of the points for the time being. Meanwhile, end of an innings and another wicket in the cricket. Nikesh Raghani.
Yeah, the West Indies all out for 308 from 47.4 overs. Shai Hope, the last man out for 78. A 3rd wicket for Saqib Mahmood. 4th for Adil Rashid in that innings. The top scorer for the West Indies, Casey Carty, making 103. So the Windies falling away just a touch towards the back end of the innings. They would have hoped to get somewhere in the region of 320, 330. But still, 309 for England to chase. It should be a pretty tasty run chase when things get back underway in around 40 minutes' time.
There's Nikesh. Coverage of that on Sports Extra. Just taking a look once more at the battles outside of the points at the moment. Ollie Behrman and Liam Lawson making contact going down into turn 1. Lawson late on the brakes in that inside corner. How did you read this one, Ollie?
That was a very optimistic move from Liam Lawson there into turn 1. Contact made between the front left of his RB onto the rear right of Oliver Behrman's Haas. Luckily it was wheel-to-wheel contact, so no cosmetic damage, and Ollie Behrman continued in front as Liam Lawson again tries to make a move into the same turn 1 the next lap, but to no avail.
No, Liam Lawson here, desperate to get through on Ollie Behrman, and they've all now been promoted a position because Pierre Gasly has come in for a 2nd pit stop, pitting outside of the outside of the points now. He was in those points paying positions. I wonder if that might trigger something because he was in a fierce battle with the likes of Isaac Hadjar and Nico Hülkenberg. So the undercut here being watched, but also these tyres clearly not going as long as the teams would like. Out in front, Piastri leads by over 5 seconds to Lando Norris. It's Leclerc in 3rd, Verstappen in 4th, Hamilton the top 5, Russell, Antonelli, Hadjar, Hülkenberg and Behrman now the top 10, fighting with Lawson, who's in 11th ahead of Alonso, Sainz, Bortoletto, Ocon the top 15.
Yeah, it's again like a clutch, I'm 15. 1973. Yeah, maybe 74 now.
Max Verstappen. Oh, as Fernando Alonso has a bit of a snap coming out of turn 12. So last week, was it last week in Monaco? Yeah, going around the racetrack. Max Verstappen wasn't too happy with his gear shifts, comparing his car to that of the 1970s Formula One car, and clearly that is carrying over into this weekend too. We've heard this a lot though from Max Verstappen, who's never quite happy with upshifts and downshifts, but mainly during practice. It always tends to come good over the course of a weekend, but he's in fourth, so perhaps nursing a few issues on board that Red Bull, certainly not feeling it where he would like to feel it at the moment. I'll just finish off the order. It was Ocon in 15th ahead of Tsunoda, who's down in 16th, Gasly and Colapinto down in 17th and 18th. Now down to 18 drivers. Alex Albon has had to retire in the Williams, and Lance Stroll was withdrawn from the race after qualifying yesterday due to a wrist injury. Jenny Gow.
I'm on Pierre Gasly watch in the Alpine, just so you know. He's just pitted his second pit stop. He's went on for the medium tyres. His tyres lasted 22 laps on a soft tyre, so that's the gauge at the moment. It's so hot out there and people are just burning through those tyres.
Yeah, Max Verstappen though, 2.3 seconds now back from Charles Leclerc, so still keeping pace. Last lap around was an 18.7. He's quicker than Charles Leclerc.
33 laps complete, 33 remaining, all to play for, all to play for.
That's what you want to hear, isn't it, over the team radio audio? I mean, how much does that kind of G up a driver?
A lot, especially as from the driver's perspective, you can only see the car in front of you or the car behind you, or potentially no cars around you at all, depending where you are on the racetrack. If your engineer's coming to you and saying it's all to play for, he can see the timing screens, he knows the strategy, he can see the pace of everyone else. It really gives you an extra boost of motivation, a boost of energy to keep pushing on, especially if you know that a podium is in contention.
You might have just heard a few round of applause in the background there. That was from the Sauber team, congratulating their driver, Gabriel Bortoletto, who has made an overtake and got himself up to 13th. Here's Lando Norris from second.
Leclerc is 4.9 behind. Verstappen is 8. Verstappen will be in our race. Let's keep finding some pace.
So Verstappen will be in our race, and keeping Lando Norris informed is Will Joseph. Norris currently second, 4.2 seconds back from Piastri. Leclerc third. Verstappen is closing to within a second now of Charles Leclerc, and this is the sound of Max Verstappen in that Red Bull, making his way downhill through turn 5, slight left-hand kink of 7 beckons, down through the gears into the left-hander of 7, up towards turn number 9. Not flat out at this stage. 270, 80, 90 kilometres an hour with the DRS, north of 300 before he slams on the brakes into the left-hander of turn 10, takes a bit of curb, that unsettles the car, runs a little bit out wide, keeps it planted though, closing in on the Ferrari ahead of Charles Leclerc, gets a little of a wobble on the rear, coming out and over the crest at 12. Two right-handers see off a lap of this circuit, the Barcelona Catalunya.
And then we can push the tyre a little bit more in high speed, turn 3, turn 9.
I can't push my front left, it's great.
As Lando Norris struggles to push more, Max Verstappen sails on by Charles Leclerc, the Dutchman, back up into third place.
Looking further down the field, Liam Lawson has finally managed to pass Oliver Behrman into turn 1 with the use of DRS and back up into the points. So that's both RBs in the points, with Isaac Hadjar in 8th and Liam Lawson in 10th.
No further action, talk of Liam Lawson, between him and Ollie Behrman for that collision that they had together. That was under investigation, but has been cleared by the stewards. Jenny.
Just listening to Lando Norris in his radio communication, he said, I can't push, my front left is grained. Front left is the major problem at this circuit because there's so many hard rights, but it can come back to you. So I wonder if he just cycles through the heat and takes control of that, the graining will come back and he can use that tyre again. It's quite early for those mediums to be graining.
Yeah, let's see. Might be able to push through if you stick with it. We know those McLarens are good at managing their tyres though. I wonder as well, with the stiffening of the front wings and their flexing coming into this weekend, is that something that may be just having a small impact on the performance throughout the race today? There's talk of that having no effect up till now really, but the true test being at the end of the 66 laps of racing we are currently watching here at the Spanish Grand Prix. lap 37 of 66. Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc, Hamilton, the top 5. Russell, Antonelli, Hadjar, Hulkenberg and Lawson, the top 10. Alonso is 11th ahead of Bortoleto, Ocon, Tsunoda. Gasly, having now pitted for a second time, is down in 15th ahead of Ollie Behrman, who has also had that pit stop for the second time. Colapinto 17th, Sainz 18th. No Alex Albon, retired out of this race.
The two Haas drivers were the only other person apart from Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari to try this gamble of taking those two medium tyres. Behrman's just come in. He's gone from the soft, like Leclerc has, to the medium,
Okay, George, let's start to close up this gap now.
That's George Russell being told to close up the gap. He's 2.2 seconds away from Lewis Hamilton, but George replies, well, I am pushing. Jenny.
Oops. Got 27 laps out of those medium tyres before turning on to the new medium tyres. So all eyes will be on Behrman and how he controls and how that tyre delivers for him.
18 cars running in this Grand Prix still. 17 of them are on the medium tyre. Only one, Yuki Tsunoda, is on the soft. So Red Bull continuing to do slightly offset strategies here just between the two internal cars and to the rest of the field, as we see the sole Williams of Carlos Sainz passing the Alpine of Franco Colapinto with the aid of DRS into turn 1. No defence there from the Argentine.
Yeah, Franco Colapinto, who looked like he might have had a better qualifying than he did yesterday, couldn't get out in that second part of qualifying, or the first part of qualifying, after a driveline issue for Franco Colapinto. Found himself stuck in the pit lane, and they did change the gearbox for a like-for-like in that car, so he didn't get a grid penalty for that, but certainly was left frustrated and is now, unfortunately for him, down at the back of the pack. Piastri, last lap around a 1:24. Lando Norris was doing a 1:19.6. Max Verstappen a 1:19.1. Lando Norris speeding the heat from Max Verstappen here. Max Verstappen, could he manage all the way to the end now and maybe disrupt a McLaren 1-2?
Max Verstappen being told he was still in this fight by his engineer. Lando Norris then being informed that Max Verstappen was closing and he needed to find some pace. What did he do? He closed a 4.8 second lead gap from the leader Oscar Piastri to himself, down to 2.2 seconds. Well, now Oscar Piastri's responded, going quicker again and building that gap back up to 3.2. Yeah, there's a lot of pace still being held internally in these cars, but they are being super careful of the tyres.
Yeah, we see this a lot from the McLarens as well. So good at managing their pace, managing their tyres out in front. As you say, Oscar Piastri last lap around a 1:19.6. So that's his best lap so far. Fastest lap at the moment, though, goes to Max Verstappen, but not on that last lap around. Piastri leads. Norris, Verstappen 4.8 seconds back from Lando Norris. Then it's Leclerc, Hamilton, Russell, Antonelli, Hadjar, Hulkenberg, Lawson, the top 10. They are your point scorers. Then it's Alonso. Bortoleto is 12th.
This pace is good, George. There's opportunities if we can close this gap a bit more.
Opportunities for George Russell, down in 6th at the moment. Jumped by both Ferraris at the start of this race. Mercedes trying to find something as we get into the second half of this Grand Prix. Russell's down in 6th ahead of his teammate Antonelli. Hadjar 8th, Hulkenberg 9th, Liam Lawson the top 10.
Max Verstappen doing 2 stops so far this race. Both times after he left the pits, he set the fastest lap of the race. What does that mean? Well, he's clearly pushing to catch up to the McLarens, but the issue is then McLaren can respond with that pace in a more consistent way. You know, they're deep into their runs now and still setting purple sectors and green laps.
Certainly are. That 40 of 66, Jenny Gow.
Yeah, just having a look at the top 10. Everyone in that top 10, I think, is going to have to pit again. So that's including Verstappen, who's already pitted twice. So as things stand, the gap at the top is 2.7 between Piastri and Norris, and then 7.6 to Verstappen. This is going to be tight at the end. This is not one to be stipping away at the end.
Okay. So, McLaren perceiving the threat now, Max. They realise they have to push on. It's a long way to go for them.
So Max Verstappen forcing almost the McLarens to push in this race, taking more life out of their tyres. Verstappen knows outright on pace he hasn't got the win in him, but if he can make McLaren's job an absolute nightmare for the rest of this Grand Prix, it will force perhaps an opportunity for the Red Bull of Max Verstappen, who currently sits in third place. Charles Leclerc comes into the pits now. His engineers are waiting for him, Jenny Gow.
Yeah, the mechanics waiting with that extra set of medium tyres. I think he got a little bit long on that pit stop, but is away quickly, and it's a 2.3 second pit stop for Ferrari.
Colapinto was the other car coming in behind him. Let's see though where this puts Charles Leclerc. Pits from fourth in this race, should come out ahead of the second Mercedes of Kimi Antonelli, and does so. Nice bit of clean air for Charles Leclerc to get on then in this race. Makes his way through the right-hander of turn one. So Piastri leading 2.7 seconds, holding that gap between his teammate. Lando Norris has been told to push for more pace. He's in second, feeling the threat from Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. Hamilton is fourth, 17 seconds though adrift. Russell, the top five, he was told to get on and close the gap to Hamilton to try and snip an opportunity. Ferrari perhaps bringing in Charles Leclerc to try and continue to keep the threat of Russell away from them. So, still lots to play out in the remaining laps of this Grand Prix, lap 42 of 66.
So we are expecting both the McLarens, Verstappen, and a lot of the other cars in the top 10 to pit again. Looking back earlier in the race, Max Verstappen had quite a few laps where he was on a soft tyre ahead of both of the McLarens with track position and where he could push as hard as he could. He then pitted later than the McLarens, so he is theoretically, well, he is on fresher tyres than both of the McLarens that are now also having to respond to his pace. They didn't expect him to be this quick. They're having to push a bit harder than they would have liked. McLaren's going to pit first. Max Verstappen's going to have clear air again. Later in the race, when he pits, he's going to be on fresher tyres nearer the end as well.
This could be rather tasty towards the end. Russell feeds out from his pit stop, by the way, and comes out in seventh. Jenny.
Yeah, he's just gone onto a set of the soft tyres. A lot of them only have a set of the new soft tyres as an option for them. So it'll be fascinating to see how long can he go. There's another, do the maths for me, 24 laps?
Never ask me to do the maths, Jenny. Never ask me to do the maths.
We're a right couple.
Lap 42 of 66 of this race.
Ollie, it's all on you.
That we're going for. Russell.
That wasn't in the job description.
Welcome to BBC Radio 5 Live's coverage of Formula One that we have going here with lap 43 now of 66. So about 23 laps remaining of this Grand Prix. I'll let you know, just pluck that out at the top of my head. Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, Hamilton, Leclerc, the top five. Leclerc having just done another pit stop. Antonelli, Hadjar, Hulkenberg and Lawson, the top 10. Alonso, Bortoletto, Tsunoda down in 13th ahead of Ocon and Gasly, the top 15. Behrman, Sainz and Colapinto, the 18 drivers that remain in this race. No Alex Albon, he has retired with damage, and Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin was withdrawn after a wrist incident flaring itself up a couple of years ago after a damage there, and certainly withdrawn. We hope to see him back in a couple of weeks' time in Canada, but we will keep you up to speed with that one.
Fun little stat. Verstappen becomes only the fourth driver after Schumacher, Hamilton and Vettel to have led laps in 100 F1 races.
So impressive, isn't it? Not only can he win, but he can go out there and lead. Read the list again.
Schumacher, Hamilton, Vettel and now Verstappen.
It's a decent list, isn't it?
Yeah, some big names on there. I'm sure he will like to read that stat back after this race.
Lap 44 of 66 here in Spain for the Spanish Grand Prix. Let's take you over to Paris once more for the Roland Garros. Russell Fuller.
Iga Swiatek has not lost at the French Open since 2021, but she's into a deciding set with Elena Rybakina for a place in the quarterfinals, and she's now a break-up, leading by 4 games to 3.
Thanks, Russell. Exciting stuff over in the French Open as here the Spanish home hero Fernando Alonso having a race he would rather not. Started inside the top 10, actually had an off in the gravel earlier on as well, and has just come in for another pit stop and feeds out down in 17th spot. So no pit stops yet from the top three in terms of additional pit stops. Max Verstappen has done 2 compared to Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, who have only done 1 stop. So Max Verstappen trying to heap the pressure onto the faster McLarens ahead of him. It's Piastri, Norris and Verstappen the top 3, Hamilton and Leclerc the top 5, with Antonelli and Russell, the 2 Mercedes drivers, rounding out that top 7. Fernando Alonso's just made a nice move on his compatriot Carlos Sainz. 16th and 17th, though, is not what they would want to be racing over in this Grand Prix.
No, definitely not. Looking at the top 3, the gap between Verstappen and Norris staying fairly stable between 4.2 and 4.5 seconds. The gap between Piastri and Norris is fluctuating quite a bit. It's going up to 4 seconds, down to 2, and then Oscar Piastri can just pull a bit more pace seemingly out of thin air, and it's going back up to 3.5. Oscar Piastri seeming to be the one here who's got a lot of pace in his back pocket.
Yeah, I wonder how much is being affected by navigating the traffic as well. Norris has got about to lap Gabriel Bortoleto. Verstappen's actually got his teammate in front of him currently, and has, I think, even managed to get a dose of DRS to get past him on the start-finish straight, so that would have helped Verstappen slightly, but now he's through. His next car to lap will be Bortoleto further down. Bortoleto is down at 11th. Jenny Gow.
I've got a question for both of you. What do you think? Have Red Bull and Verstappen put the fear of God into McLaren, and is there a possibility that they might not pit again? They'll just go with the stops that they've already done and spooked McLaren into having to drive fast and put more energy through the tyres?
I mean, it's a risk. It's all Verstappen and Red Bull can do, right, with only 1 car in the game. But the advantage is for both McLarens is they're both up there. It's 2 cars against 1, right, Ollie?
I can't see them not pitting again. The most I could see them doing, and I think this would be super out there, is you pit one and you leave the other one out there. But then which one takes the hit of potentially dropping back? I think it will be... The Red Bull definitely has more pace than McLaren were expecting. That's clear. They're having to push quite early on these tyres. Let's see how these next 10 or so laps develop.
We'll see tyre degradation also to play for. We know the McLarens were managing their pace. Have they managed a little too much? But Piastri starting to accelerate away. 4.4 seconds the gap to his teammate Lando Norris. Might well have come through some of that tyre deg as well. We were talking about Verstappen's tyres. Well, let's have a look. Last lap around a 1:23, was a 10th quicker than Norris, but Piastri quicker than both of them. So just wondered how much pressure Max Verstappen is putting onto his set of tyres too, and whether that might come back to bite him.
Red Bull mechanics have been busy this afternoon in the sweltering heat because Yuki Tsunoda has pitted again. This is his 3rd stop, so he did medium, soft, just waiting to see what he's gone back out on track with now.
Meanwhile, also action in the pit lane, Nico Hülkenberg, who's looking on course to score some points here. If Sauber can manage this till the end, he comes in for a pit stop, puts on the soft tyre. His teammate goes through, so too does the Red Bull of Max Verstappen, who will need to lap Bortoleto. Hülkenberg then back out in this race and stays inside that top 10. Lewis Hamilton has just been told on the radio to box. That means to come into the pits, and here he is. Slows down to that 80 kilometres an hour pit lane speed limit. Jenny.
So he pulls that red Ferrari into the pit box, slams on the brakes. They put on a set of softs, but there's a problem with the front right. It needed another attempt, so 4.9, that's slow.
Not ideal for Lewis Hamilton. He's coming quite a few laps behind his teammate of Charles Leclerc for his 2nd stop. But now he's been split by both Mercedes have jumped him as he comes out, and he's going to be defending against Isaac Hadjar as well into turn 1, who's on hotter but more used tyres. He runs in a bit deep. Isaac Hadjar behind him through turn 2. But Lewis Hamilton's got it. He's pulling away now through turn 3. Close one there, but yeah, been jumped by both Mercedes.
Yeah, it's not worked out there for Lewis Hamilton, but he will have that fresher rubber, but he hasn't been too happy on board that Ferrari. Jenny.
Antonelli does need to pit again, so maybe just one of them has got in front of him. Yeah.
Lap 48 of 66. Piastri, Norris, second. Verstappen into the pits, Jenny.
Right, Red Bulls are waiting to go. They put on a set of the soft tyres. What the time? 2.4 seconds for Verstappen.
Let's see where Max Verstappen feeds out in this race then. After piling on the pressure to the two McLarens, we're witnessing a battle for strategy here playing out. It looks like McLarens have got this, but let's see where Verstappen comes in. He'll slot in behind his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, but not for position, so Tsunoda will know that it's his teammate there. Will get out of the way nicely. He does so. Actually almost eases off the gas too much because the Haas almost comes into the back of him. Verstappen then will be in third position. Let's see if McLaren reacts then to this one with Lando Norris currently occupying in second. The mechanics are waiting in the garage by the tyres. Are they going to bring Lando Norris in to respond? The gap, 25 seconds. Average loss in the pits is around 22 to 23 seconds. This is what Verstappen has been piling on the pressure for, to try and split the McLarens, to try and get himself into this fight, to disrupt them, to try and force them to take more life out of their tyres. Norris into the pits. Jenny.
So he slams on under his braking and he pulls into the pit box. They undo the tyres, do them back up. It's a really fast stop. Softs go on and it's 2.3 seconds for Lando Norris.
Let's see where Lando Norris then peels out, but we'll keep an eye on Max Verstappen as well. Norris emerging towards the end of the pit lane now as Verstappen swings on to the start-finish straight. Norris onto the gas, feeds out, and this should be easy for Lando Norris. Feeling the pressure, but managing it well. But Max Verstappen will have his tyres up to speed, up to temperature already. Norris will have to do the hard work on this first outlap from the pits. Verstappen closes in through the right-hander of turn 3 into the braking zone of turn 4, but Norris with that track position and has managed to hold on to that second place, but has got Max Verstappen for company within a second. Split second and third. Leclerc fourth, George Russell is fifth. Verstappen is fastest of anybody in the first sector. Oscar Piastri is your race leader in the McLaren. He's just been told to come into the pits. The gap between himself and Norris is 27.7 seconds. Needs a nice clean pit stop here, Jenny.
Yes, so they're welcoming in at McLaren. They put on those soft banded tyres and it is clean for Piastri. He goes back out 2.2 seconds.
Exactly what the McLaren boys needed for their drivers. Clean, quick pit stops for Oscar Piastri, but he will feed out into a load of traffic as well. Norris has got a bit of traffic too in front of him. Piastri feeds out, holds the lead. Norris is stuck behind the Williams of Sainz, gets DRS. That's going to give Verstappen DRS as well, who also gets through on the traffic of Sainz. So it's Piastri who leads. 3.5 seconds the gap to Lando Norris, and Max Verstappen lurking. Race on between McLaren and Max Verstappen, who is single-handedly keeping Red Bull in this fight. As this one plays itself out, it's lap 50 of 66, and there's been a goal in the National League playoff final. Sahel Zahi.
It's gone the way of Southend. Oldham 0, Southend 1. The goal coming off Manny Monti, the Oldham centre half. It was a ball clipped from the halfway line. Charlie Kendall was being a nuisance. The Oldham goalkeeper came to meet him, Matthew Hudson, and the final touch came off the Oldham centre half. Oldham 0, Southend 1.
Oscar Piastri leads the Spanish Grand Prix. It's lap 50 of 66. A 3.1 second gap separates him and his teammate Lando Norris. It's Max Verstappen who is piling on the pressure and has been doing everything he can to keep himself in the hunt for this one, who occupies third. Here he is.
Hey, the ride the car is it's completely broken.
Okay, Max.
The ride of the car is completely broken. Max Verstappen has not been happy with the performance in that Red Bull, but has been driving like it hasn't been hindering him. He would like to be in the lead of this race, was for a certain time trying to force the McLarens to do something with their strategy. Just one car for Red Bull in this fight. Yuki Tsunoda's all the way back in 15th, but it's Verstappen who's been trying to keep himself and force McLaren into some sort of mistake, some strategic nightmare.
Yes, Red Bull there tried to leapfrog the McLarens in the pit lane. It didn't work. McLaren reacted immediately and did two very impressive, very quick, very crucial stops for both of them. And they are now comfortably ahead of Max Verstappen as he complains about the ride of his car. And Oscar Piastri pulling away again into the distance. Not what Red Bull had hoped for. They really wanted to get past at least the McLaren of Norris. Didn't quite work out that way.
No, it didn't. As the top five are Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc. Then comes George Russell, who's managed to jump Lewis Hamilton in 6th. Kimi Antonelli is in 7th. Jenny.
Yes, and just looking at Kimi Antonelli's pit stop, it was 3.8 seconds for Mercedes, which is slightly longer than they would have hoped for. I didn't see exactly what had happened, but it didn't go to plan. He's now out in 7th place.
Thanks, Jenny, as we'll check in once again in Roland Garros. Let's head to Russell Fuller.
They are on serve in this deciding set, Iga Swiatek and Elena Rybakina. First Swiatek broke, then Rybakina broke back. It's 4 games all, juice on Rybakina's serve. And remember, Iga Swiatek has won her last 24 matches at the French Open.
Lando Norris under pressure here, coming through turns 1 and 2, and it's not pressure. Well, it wasn't. It's not pressure from Verstappen. It was traffic trying to weave his way through, but was slowed down massively. Verstappen able to close that gap and make use of the traffic. It's hindered Norris. It's benefited Verstappen, who closes to within a second of Lando Norris, who occupies 2nd place. But now they've both got themselves into a bit of clear air, but there's more traffic coming their way too. This is going to be decisive in the closing stages of this Spanish Grand Prix. Oscar Piastri is starting to push away. Is 2.9 seconds clear. Actually, was slower on that last lap.
Idiots. Max really not happy there. Oscar Piastri's finally got himself into some clear air, but what we just saw there was a Haas going off at turn 1, deep into the runoff. You then had the RB trying to get out of the way of his sister car of Max Verstappen, blocking him. Max Verstappen waving his arms about in the cockpit, and then, yeah, coming on the radio. He's really not happy with this fight.
No, was not. Normally, lap cars, they're given a blue flag, and you have to get out the way for the quicker cars ahead. You're not in that race, but the problem comes is when the lap cars are having their own race as well, which the likes of Lawson, Behrman, Alonso are all doing outside of the top 10. It's lap 53 of 66. Oscar Piastri on course at the moment. If he takes the win with 25 points to his name, he will extend his lead in the championship. It was 3, the gap between himself and Lando Norris coming into this weekend. He would extend that to 10 if he can hold on to it. Oscar Piastri leads, Lando Norris in 2nd, Max Verstappen 3rd, as we're just seeing a couple of replays of Liam Lawson really getting into the fights today, this time having contact with the Haas of Ollie Behrman. And that was all happening while Lando Norris and Max Verstappen were trying to make their way through.
I don't think there was contact there between Liam Lawson and the Haas, but the Haas had to run off into the escape route of turn 1, kept it flat, followed the FIA's directions, but Lando Norris was closing at a huge speed, went to go round the outside of Liam Lawson in turn 3, and then Ollie Behrman came flat out from the left-hand side and nearly created a sandwich.
Tasty sandwich, huh? Just looking at that replay again, there's a little bit of debris on just off the racing line, slightly off the racing track, but as they go down that escape road, it's there. I don't know if they're going to have to do something about it. I mean, it must be for Alex Albon's car, so that happened ages ago, but it's there, and the race director, what are they going to think?
Well, turn 1 incident involving Behrman and Lawson leaving the track and gaining an advantage has been noted, so we'll see if that flags up again on the race control systems into the closing stages of this Spanish Grand Prix. And while Max Verstappen, it felt like, well, the strategy, they were really trying to manipulate that, also the traffic helping him slightly, but I get a sense that Piastri and Norris now into clearer air have the legs on the Red Bull driver, Max Verstappen, who is 3rd, 2 seconds adrift now of Lando Norris, who himself is 3 seconds adrift of the race leader, Oscar Piastri. Leclerc 4th, Russell the top 5, Hamilton, Antonelli is 7th, Hadjar looking to pick up some points once again for Racing Bulls in 8th, Nico Hülkenberg looking to get his 2nd point score of the season. If he can hold on tonight, that'll be massive for the Sauber team. Pierre Gasly as well, clinging on to that final point in 10th. Then comes Liam Lawson in 11th with Alonso 12th, Behrman is 13th, Sainz 14th. It's been a weekend to forget for Yuki Tsunoda, who's down in 15th in the other Red Bull. Ocon is 16th, Bortoleto is 17th. Such a shame for the Brazilian driver who had a great qualifying, has fallen down the order. Colapinto bringing up the rear of the field, 18th and last. No Alex Albon, and we've got a car into the gravel. It's Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes, finds the gravel for Antonelli. I think that's coming into turn 12, possibly further round the corner, or turn 10 actually. He's brought out a safety car. The race turned on its head in the closing stages. Antonelli climbs out of his car in the Mercedes. He's found the gravel and he is out of the car. We haven't seen the beginnings of that incident, but race control calling a safety car. What's this going to do in the closing stages of the Spanish Grand Prix?
This doesn't look like a mistake from the rookie Kimi Antonelli. He's gone straight in the gravel, he's jumped straight out of the car, and there is smoke pouring from the engine of that Mercedes. Looks like a technical issue as a McLaren comes into the pit lane.
Cheap pit stop if under a safety car. You knock that down from 22 seconds down to about 11 to 12 seconds, and it's a double stack, Jenny Gao.
Yeah, they've planned for this, so in they come. Verstappen also coming in, so Piastri is first. They're having to hold with Norris. They're not quite ready. Verstappen is now coming in as Norris is held. Verstappen's now in, Norris is out, Verstappen is waiting, he's out again, he's gone onto the hard tyres. They didn't see what any other pit stops were doing. They've gone onto the soft for Norris. I didn't see for Piastri, apologies.
Safety car out, Piastri came in, got first dibs, he was the lead car. It looked like a quick stop, but then just a slight delay in getting away as Lando Norris came in. Now the sceptical amongst us might say, was that planned by Piastri? We'll see, but Norris then did get in. It was a slower stop. Verstappen out as well, back into this race. Everybody coming in to the pits out of the leaders. Leclerc pits, Russell pits, Hamilton pits. You've got to. Anyone else who pits and they don't, well, you'll be susceptible on the safety car restart to much fresher rubber. So actually, will this all even out in the wash once the safety car comes in? We'll see who the gainers are. Piastri continues to lead this race from Norris and Verstappen, the top three as they stand. Hamilton comes into the pits as well and out again. Here's Verstappen.
What is this tyre?
That's the hard tyre, Max.
Why? Why are we on the hard?
That was the only option.
Out of tyres, out of luck for Max Verstappen. The only option, the hard tyre. Everyone else on the soft.
Why pit him then? I don't understand it. Why pit him? Why not just take the punt and gamble and leave him out there?
That sound is Kimi Antonelli, who turned in to turn 10 and then didn't. Car conking out, and he had no choice but to go into the gravel.
Yeah, very, very strange from the Mercedes there. He turns in and the engine just goes. Looking in his mirrors as he goes into the gravel, he can see smoke pouring out, and before the car had even stopped, he was undoing his belts, wheel off, and was getting him outside of that smoking Mercedes. Very strange in the pit lane there. Max Verstappen, I think they had to pit because everyone else did, but he's gone onto that new hard tyre. No one else in the race has run that because, to be honest, it's awful.
Expert analysis there from the former Alpine F1 development driver.
So the Pirelli spokesman.
That's top tier, I must say. That is top tier. Right, safety car out, lap 57 of 66. Piastri, Norris and Verstappen, the top three. That gives us all a bit of a breather. There's a wicket in the cricket. Let's head back to Nikesh Regani.
Yeah, where England are chasing 309 to beat the West Indies in the second ODI and take with it the three-match series, but they're off to a terrible start. They've lost a wicket in the first over. Jamie Smith caught behind off Jayden Seales for a duck, so England 1 for 1 after 5 balls of their reply.
Has Nikesh, lap 57 of 66 for the Spanish Grand Prix. The safety car is out for Mercedes' Kimi Antonelli with some sort of failure on board his car. He leaves this triple header pointless. The top three have pitted under the safety car, but Max Verstappen has come onto the hard tyre. Piastri and Norris pitted and did a double stack as well. However, Verstappen coming out into the hard tyre, whereas Piastri and Norris available for a soft tyre, and Verstappen wasn't particularly impressed by that. It seems they were just not any other tyres for the Dutchman available, as we now weight under safety car. Who has this benefited? Certainly not Kimi Antonelli, who's made it back to the pit. It's Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, the top three. Leclerc holds on to fourth. Russell in fifth. Hamilton sixth. The top six as they were. Isaac Hadjar holds on to seventh. Nico Hülkenberg has, I think this has worked for Hülkenberg, who actually had pit stopped before the safety car came out. So should be able to go to the end, depending on how long the safety car goes for. He's in eighth. This looking rosy for Hülkenberg. Gasly ninth. Liam Lawson has managed to get his way up inside the top 10. Racing Bulls looking at back-to-back double point scores. If they can hold on to it, Ocon is 11th, Bortoletto 12th, Alonso 13th, Behrman, Tsunoda the top 15, Sainz and Colapinto the 17 drivers remaining in this race. Kimi Antonelli has now retired. That's his second retirement of the season. Alex Albon is out of this race as well with front wing damage, and Lance Stroll was withdrawn from the race due to injury. Jenny Gow.
Right, I'm just gathering my breath hard. The only person in the whole field on them is Max Verstappen. They are a brand new set of hard tyres, but there we go. Other people who didn't stop, Lawson in P10, he's on used 12 set old soft tyres, and Ocon is on a medium set of tyres that are 13 laps old, so they might be quite vulnerable, those three sets of team members.
Quite possibly. Well, the recovery vehicle is on track, getting rid of Kimi Antonelli's stricken Mercedes under safety car conditions here in Spain. So let's head over to France. Russell Fuller at the Roland Garros.
Iga Świątek for the second time in this deciding set against Elena Rybakina is a break-up, and so she will serve for a place in the quarter-finals, the defending champion, leading Rybakina by 6 games to 5.
Russell Fuller at Roland Garros there for the French Open. Safety car conditions here in Spain at the circuit. Barcelona, Catalunya for the Spanish Grand Prix, round 9 of the Formula 1 World Championship. Safety car out after Kimi Antonelli's seeming power unit failure for the Mercedes man out of this race. The two McLarens pitting under safety car, double stacking. Piastri in first. Seemed like a smooth stop, a little bit of a delay getting in, but in the end it didn't hold up Lando Norris, who came in straight after feeds back out in second. So McLaren still holding on to a 1-2. Max Verstappen is third. It didn't help him, but he is on the hard tyre, leaves him susceptible to Charles Leclerc behind. George Russell as well in the top 5. Verstappen, well, we know he will get his elbows out, but with cars on quicker tyres behind him, you do have to really question the call here from Red Bull. That car's now getting out of the way, so this will drag it out even longer with Liam Lawson the first of those. So while the lap cars do their overtaking and join up at the back of the field, let's head back. Is another wicket, Nikesh Ragani.
Yeah, nightmare start here for England in their chase of 309 to win this second ODI. Both openers now back in the pavilion. Ben Duckett hauling out, caught at deep third off the bowling of Matthew Ford. So Joe Root's still there. He's only faced a couple of balls, and England already 2 for 2 in the second over.
Thanks, Nikesh. Continue coverage of that over on Sports Extra. Jenny Gow.
Just heard from Mercedes, Kimi Antonelli out of this race. It was a power unit problem. I think we guessed that. It was a loss of oil pressure for Kimi Antonelli. Caused the safety car. Good fun.
Yeah, but for Kimi Antonelli, it's certainly not for the Italian rookie who, well, now leaves this triple header with 2 retirements to his name and an 18th place finish. So looking to put this 3-week stint well and truly behind him as we have a week off before we arrive in Canada. Now, we will get the safety car in once the lapped cars have joined up towards the back of the pack. Piastri will lead them away. Piastri and Norris, both on the soft tyre. Will they be allowed to fight, Ollie Caldwell? That's the question.
We haven't seen any team orders from McLaren so far this year. That doesn't seem to be changing, especially now that Max Verstappen is on the hard compound behind them. McLaren's going to let this fight. I don't think they're going to say anything, and we're going to see a good McLaren battle, I hope.
We could all hope so. Piastri has looked like he's had the edge though on Norris for the majority of this weekend, but let's see how it plays out once the safety car comes in. Max Verstappen on the hard tyre, can he hold on to third? Is he susceptible from those behind? Charles Leclerc fourth, George Russell fifth, Hamilton, Hadjar, Hülkenberg, Gasly, Lawson, the top 10. They're your point scorers as it currently stands. Jenny Gow.
More pressure on Hadjar. I'm just thinking he's currently P7, came in, pitted, and so he's on fresh tyres. But as he does well, and Yuki Tsunoda trails around in 15th place, is there going to be more expectation of Hadjar to get his turn in that fated second Red Bull seat?
To the French Open, Russell Fuller.
Iga Swiatek, the defending champion, has 2 match points at 6-5 and 40-15 against the 2022 Wimbledon champion Elena Rybakina. She serves now and she goes long with the first serve. She trailed by a set and by 2 games to love, and she lost that first set by 6 games to 1, and it looked as if her title defence might be ending here in the 4th round. Instead, match point on a second serve, forehand from Rybakina. Swiatek's forehand down the line. Rybakina with the backhand onto the backhand of Swiatek. Rybakina cross-court with a forehand. Swiatek cross-court with a forehand. Real power from Rybakina on the forehand to save the first of 2 match points against her. So a second chance now for Swiatek on a cloudy, warm day in Paris as she tries to continue this incredible streak at the French Open. She's won her last 24 matches. She's trying to win the title for a 4th time in a row, and she has a second match point after 2 hours and 29 minutes on the Philippe Chatrier court. Elena Rybakina crouching at the far end behind the baseline, waiting to receive this Iga Swiatek serve. The first serve is good, the backhand from Rybakina. Swiatek with a forehand cross-court. Rybakina's in trouble, and Rybakina is beaten, and the streak goes on. Iga Swiatek wins for a 25th match in a row at the French Open, and she's into the quarterfinals again.
Thanks, Russell Fuller. History being made over in France. Let's see in Spain where we are now in the last 6 laps of the Spanish Grand Prix. The safety car coming in. It's Piastri who leads on soft tyres. Lando Norris is tucked in right behind him. Can the 2 McLarens fight? Max Verstappen, who's been threatening all race long, but finds himself on the hard compound tyre. He's going to be threatened from behind, which is Charles Leclerc and George Russell, along with Lewis Hamilton. It's green flag racing, and we're back underway. It's a sprint to the finish here in Spain. The 2 McLarens away well. Verstappen out the final corner, touches the gravel, goes sideways, holds on to it. That allows Charles Leclerc alongside. Verstappen with one of his worst safety car restarts of his career loses 2 positions into turn 1. It's gone from bad to worse for the reigning champion, who was keeping McLaren on their toes for the win all race long, and now finds himself behind Charles Leclerc. George Russell was having a go. Verstappen took to the runoff area, rejoined ahead of Russell. He'll be looking at that. But the restart on lap 61 of 66, Piastri leads.
He just rammed into me. He did the same. That's a penalty.
That's what Max Verstappen thinks about George Russell and his fight with Charles Leclerc too. Leclerc now through and up the road. Leclerc on course for back-to-back podiums in Formula 1. Verstappen 4th, Russell 5th, Hamilton 6th, Hülkenberg is up in 7th. This could be a mighty result for the German in the Sauber. Isaac Hadjar, he's got a gap to him in 8th.
Charles just rammed into me on this raid.
Copy that, Max.
It was Charles Leclerc who he was complaining about. Hadjar 8th, Gasly 9th, Liam Lawson is in 10th. But that was a scary start for Max Verstappen, Ollie.
Huge moment from Max Verstappen going round what should be a flat-out final corner. Got fully sideways into a drift before correcting it, but lost all the momentum down the straight. Charles Leclerc a bit caught out potentially by that. Went down the inside of him into turn 1 with George Russell fancying it as well, forcing Max Verstappen off the runoff, down the escape road into turn 1.
Lap 62 of 66. We're about to get another look at it. It was coming out that final corner, and Verstappen there, almost losing the rear. The save on that from Verstappen, and there was contact. There was, with Leclerc on his left-hand side to Max Verstappen's front wing, just merging together as they went down the start-finish straight. We'll try and get an overhead look at it. How are you reading that, Ollie? Now we've got a few different angles.
Tiny bit of side-to-side contact there. Leclerc's front wing is way past Max Verstappen's, but he does drift left slightly into the side of Max Verstappen. The FIA will be looking at that because, yeah, there was a slight left movement by Charles Leclerc, and then contact from George Russell into turn 1 as he tried to go up the inside, forcing Max Verstappen off as well.
I'd argue the more significant contact was Russell against Verstappen going into turn 1. That's what forced Verstappen off into the runoff area. It was wheel-to-wheel contact, but it was a hefty hit. Verstappen took to the escape road, which you have to go left of the bollard and rejoined ahead of George Russell. That incident is under investigation. Lap 63 of 66. Piastri, after the safety car restart, has now got a gap of 1.2 seconds ahead of Norris. The two McLarens are not fighting here. Charles Leclerc is third ahead of Max Verstappen, who is holding on to fourth, but is on the hard tyre, at risk of George Russell finding a way through eventually in fifth. Hamilton is sixth. Hulkenberg's managed to get Hadjar on the restart up into seventh. Nico Hulkenberg, who finished in seventh at the start of the year and hasn't scored points since, looking to get his second point scored at the board for Sauber, who are currently last in the Constructors' Championship. Isaac Hadjar looking for 3 points finishes in a row. If he can hold on to it, this triple header proving good for the French rookie, down in 8th ahead of his compatriot Pierre Gasly in 9th. And Liam Lawson is clinging on to P10, but Gabriel Bortoleto is right behind him in the Sauber. The reigning Formula 2 champion from Brazil hasn't scored any points, sits last in the Drivers' Championship, but he can sniff a point. But he's also got Fernando Alonso behind him as well. These two good friends. In fact, Fernando Alonso manages Gabriel Bortoleto, but I don't think that's going to have any impact on their racing on the track. Meanwhile, Verstappen has been told to give the position back to George Russell over the team radio. I think I just saw that pop up on the team radio.
No, Verstappen was asking and telling his team that Charles Leclerc should give the position back.
Max, can you let Russell through, please? Let Russell through.
No, I was ahead.
My advice is to let him through.
Wait, I was ahead. He just ran me off the road.
But that's the rules.
Oh, there's contact as he tries to let him through into the left-hander on turn 5. Russell on the outside sweeping in, and there is contact between himself and Verstappen. They both carry on through the new driver guidelines. You have to have your front axle at least alongside the mirror or of the other car prior to and at the apex. That is what they'll be looking at. Verstappen being told by his own engineer to let George Russell through. Here's Russell.
Good night, mate. Just pass it.
Through the right-hander of turn 12. Russell is let through, but is very tentative to move through, thinking Verstappen might come in on him again. He doesn't. We'll need another look at that incident, but as it happened, it looked two cars going into the corner with clear space on either side and somehow having contact. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton's losing ground to Nico Hulkenberg down the inside for the hold. We haven't seen him up this high in some time. He's up into 6th, looking for his season best result for Sauber. What a race this has been for Nico Hulkenberg. Verstappen's down to 5th, Hulkenberg 6th, Hamilton is 7th. Here we go, we're going to get another look at it. Coming into the left-hander of turn 5, George Russell moves to the racing line, turns in. Verstappen then just comes steamrolling in. Late on the brakes, there's contact between Verstappen's front right and George Russell's front left. We've got an overhead shot of it now. How do you read that, Ollie Caldwell?
Max Verstappen had moved to the left on the exit of turn 4 and slowed considerably to do what his team asked him to do and let George Russell past. But then the second George Russell was about halfway alongside him, he just floored it past the braking zone and then locked up his front inside tyre and driving straight into the side of George Russell.
Russell saying he's got damage on the radio as well. Can he hold on to 4th? Verstappen is still right there with him within DRS, but Verstappen, under safety car conditions, came into the pits and the only tyres he had left were the hard tyre, the slowest compounder tyre available. Everybody else on the soft tyre. It leaves him susceptible, which it has done. Leclerc's gone through, so too has Russell. Didn't help, but Verstappen almost losing his Red Bull on the safety car restart. It's Oscar Piastri who leads by over 2 seconds to Lando Norris. Then it's Charles Leclerc, Russell, Verstappen the top 5, Hülkenberg in 6th, Hamilton 7th, Hadjar 8th, Gasly, Alonso the top 10. He's got ahead of Bortoletto and Liam Lawson. The incident between Verstappen and Russell is under investigation. Behrman 13th, Tsunoda 14th, Carlos Sainz is 15th, Franco Colapinto is 16th, Esteban Ocon is 17th, Kimi Antonelli is retired from this race. The reason for the safety car, Alex Albon too, retired early doors. No Lance Stroll, withdrawn from the race after an injury post-qualifying yesterday. Take a moment to breathe. He will be back on top. It was his teammate last week, but Oscar Piastri strikes back and extends the lead in the championship once more. Piastri wins the Spanish Grand Prix. It's a McLaren 1-2. Lando Norris holds on to second, and Charles Leclerc back-to-back podiums for the Monegasque. Third place in Spain, Russell 4th, Verstappen 5th, Hülkenberg up in 6th, his best result of the season. Hamilton down to 7th, Hadjar 3 points finishes in a row for the French rookie in 8th, ahead of his compatriot Pierre Gasly, and Fernando Alonso, having started in 10th, well, he took a while to get himself back there, steals the final point, but the full 25 go to Oscar Piastri for McLaren, who takes that championship lead back up to 10 points clear of Lando Norris.
Oscar Piastri also stealing the fastest lap after that final pit stop there. So commanding race by him, led off the line, great start into turn 1 and just didn't look back. Lando Norris managed to get back on Max Verstappen, and then it was really a commanding race from the McLaren drivers there. No faults in the pit stop. Looked a bit spicy at times, but they reacted to what Red Bull was doing, and great result by them.
10-second time penalty for Max Verstappen, causing a collision. That's dropped him to 10th place. 1 point picked up for Max Verstappen. That puts George Russell up into 4th. Nico Hülkenberg in 5th for Sauber. Hamilton 6th, Hadjar 7th, Gasly 8th, Alonso 9th, Verstappen left with a point.
Checkered flag. What a race. What a weekend, mate. Really good. Really happy. Biggest pole margin of the year. And very convincing Sunday afternoon as well. Great job.
Yep. When you said that based off last year, this weekend was going to be awesome, you weren't wrong. Should listen to you more often, you know your stuff, Tom. Great weekend. Yeah, couldn't have asked for more. So thank you very much, everybody. Nice way to bounce back from a little bit of a difficult one last week, and very well done, well managed. Couldn't have done it any better myself. So well done.
5th win of the season for Oscar Piastri. He's always so cool, isn't he, Ollie? He just sounds like he hasn't driven 66 frantic laps of racing.
Well, exciting race for McLaren and Oscar Piastri out front. Wait until he gets in the cool-down room and watches the replays and see what happened behind him.
That is always one of the highlights of this moment. Lando Norris makes it a McLaren 1-2.
Wait until he listens to the Checkered Flag podcast later. Off the chart.
Which will be available on BBC Sounds and wherever you get your podcasts. Pulls into Parc Fermé. Does Oscar Piastri? Actually makes it rather difficult for Lando Norris to squeeze his McLaren in there. You've got room, Lando. You've got the room. No, he decides not to risk it. Doesn't want any further damage and decides to get a push from Joe Bauer, the FIA delegate there. But for Oscar Piastri then, and McLaren, with Max Verstappen applying the pressure early doors, splitting the two McLarens in the early stages, then falling back, but then going ahead with an early pit stop, getting that undercut, couldn't do it at an outright pace, was trying to force McLaren to think strategically, to eat up their tyres more than they would do. And we know that's a strength of McLaren as well, but the temperatures here at the end, just under 30 degrees, really forcing McLaren to think, and the safety car for Kimi Antonelli at the end, changing the game for the betterment of the two McLaren drivers, and for the worse for Max Verstappen, who falls out from, well, what would have been a podium place to, well, 5th on the road, plus a 10-second time penalty for contact with George Russell, comes away with a point.
Interestingly, Ferrari have leaped up in the constructors' standings. They're now 2nd place, which is kind of where you think they would be, but due to 2nd place and overtaking Mercedes.
Well, that all fell apart for Red Bull at the end there. They were really making the best of what was a difficult situation, just not being able to match the McLarens on pace. They were doing a great job until that final pit stop, and then just putting Max Verstappen on the hards was a strange call. Every other driver on track was on a softer, grippier tyre than him, and it just seemed to, I don't know if it stressed him out or what, but then unnecessary contact, it seemed, with George Russell. 1 point, that could really be the difference, you know, of him being in the title fight by halfway through the year or not.
As they make their way to get measured in Parc Fermé, a handshake between Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri. Leclerc then managing to nick through on the safety car restart, making use of Max Verstappen being on that slower tyre. That will be a call that will be reviewed. Did they have no other choice? Could they have stayed out and held on?
They had another soft, a used soft, from what I was looking at and their records, but they did have it. How old it would have been might have been a bit smelly and not very good, but I think that hard option just threw him so totally and fundamentally. I wonder what they're so adept at their tyre management and making good calls. That seemed slightly off.
Well, it's a tyre that hadn't been used since FP1 because it just wasn't gripping into the track well. It had a lot of thermal deg, and Max Verstappen would have known that. So the moment he came out of his box and would have seen the white-walled hard, he'd have been thinking, what on earth are we doing?
And you could tell how flustered he was on the radio, almost losing the car as well out of the final corner on the safety car restart. The rear end stepping out on him. Great car control from Max Verstappen. And what about that incident too with George Russell? That will be scrutinised, and we will be looking at that too. But we can hear from our top three with the dynamic duo of David Coulthard and Terry Crews speaking.
Oscar Piastri, the end to a perfect weekend. That wasn't as easy as I was expecting for you guys when I saw your pace in qualifying, but a beautifully executed race.
Yeah, definitely. It was a bit of a surprise to see Max try a free stop, and it nearly worked for him. So, yeah, it was a great weekend overall, though. I think the pace was really good. We could turn it on when we needed to, and just very proud of the work we've done this weekend. It wasn't the best first practice, and then we got our stuff together, and yeah, it's a nice way to bounce back from Monaco. So, no, been a superb weekend.
Now, Oscar, this is your 7th win overall, the 5th of the season. How do you feel about your performance going into the Canadian Grand Prix?
Hard to complain. Yeah. Very hard to complain. It's been a great year, and this weekend's been exactly the kind of weekend I was looking for. You know, we executed everything we needed to when it counted, and that's all you can ask for. So the team gave me a great car once again. It's a lot of fun winning races at the moment, so I've been enjoying it, and I hope the team are too. So thanks to the crowd for being out here. It's been a great weekend. A lot of support out here, a lot of traffic as well, but that's the sign of a lot of fans, so it's nice to be here.
Now, you did the restart perfectly once again. There was a lot of action behind. I don't know if you had the chance to see anything on the circuit screens.
I've seen that Hülkenberg finished 6th, which is pretty impressive, so well done to him, I guess. But yeah, my restart was okay from a time point of view. I'm not sure my rear tyres were very happy though. I think I was wheel spinning in 6th gear, so not the cleanest of restarts, but it was good enough. And then just getting used to how much grip there was on low fuel again. It was like being back in qualifying, so that was a bit of an adjustment, but no, very well managed.
Yeah, beautiful race. Congratulations on your victory.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Cheers. Thank you.
And now we have the second place finisher, Lando. I know, sorry, my English is not so good. I was just so taken aback by the end of that Grand Prix. It was all kicking off with the restart there. I guess you did everything you could to manage your race to the second place.
I did, yes, but you know, Oscar drove a very good race today. Didn't quite have the pace to match him, but we gave it a best shot. It's a long race, you know, anything could have happened at the end. We both got pretty sideways with the safety car restart. It was a good fun race, you know, and for us as a team to finish 1-2 is even better.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Great stuff.
Thank you. No, I am. Thank you so much.
Cheers, man.
You are the man.
Cheers.
And then Charles Leclerc, I suppose one of the happiest happiest podiums you've had, because it all came to you right at the end there with the restart. Put us in the cockpit. We saw Max get out onto the curb, and then you'd contact along the start-finish straight.
Yeah, it was. It was a battle for the track position to get the slipstream of the guys in front. Max wanted to bring me towards the inside where there's all the rubber, so I didn't want to go too much there. So I was trying to push him to the left. There was a little bit of contact, but fortunately for us, no consequences. But I'm really happy. Obviously, yesterday I sacrificed quite a bit qualifying in order to have better tires for today. I didn't know whether it would pay off. At the end, it did. I think P4 in a normal race would have been our position. With a safety car, we got lucky and a podium, so I'm really happy with that.
Now, Max was third the whole race, man. Tell me what was going through your mind when you saw that opportunity to take Max.
Yeah, when my engineers told me that Max was going on a new hard for the last stint, I don't know if they had the choice or if they had no choice. I guess they had no choice. I was obviously very optimistic because I knew how bad the hard was, and that's where I thought that I really need to have a good restart, and maybe there's an opportunity, and there was. So
we're just seeing this contact.
Woo! Yeah, I just wanted a slipstream in front, but it all worked out well.
Yeah, congratulations on that podium.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
It got violent out there.
Terry Crews and David Coulthard, not the duo you'd expect to see doing the questions there to the top three. Oscar Piastri wins the Spanish Grand Prix ahead of Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc third, and that incident they were talking about there, that is being investigated, so we will have to stay tuned on that one. Russell fourth, Hülkenberg with a season's best fifth ahead of Hamilton, Hadjar, Gasly. Alonso gets his first points of the season at last in ninth. Max Verstappen dropped down to 10th after his penalty. Lawson outside the points in 11th ahead of Bortoletto. Tsunoda, Sainz, Colapinto the top 15, Esteban Ocon and Ollie Behrman the 17 finishers. Retirements for Antonelli and Albon, and withdrawn after injury post-qualifying was Lance Stroll, Aston Martin. That just about does it then from Spain for our coverage of the Spanish Grand Prix. My thanks to Jenny Gouter, Ollie Cordwell. We'll be analysing all of that and keeping you up to speed with any post-race penalties that come through in the Checkered Flag podcast, which you can hear on BBC Sounds a little later on today and wherever you get your podcasts. But for now, from Spain, we'll see you in a couple of weeks in Canada, and we'll throw you back to Paris. Katie Smith.
Harry, thank you very much. So a win for Oscar Piastri in Spain. Our focus, though, here now on 5 Live this Sunday afternoon will be Paris, the French capital, day 8.